Okay. Good afternoon. Welcome to the March 13th meeting of the Early Childhood Subcommittee. Today we have two bills on our agenda, HB 1237 and HB 1076. Why don't we start with HB 1237? And I will say that we do have amendments that were distributed a little while ago for both bills. Alistair, do you want to walk us through the bill and the amendments for 1237, the Delegate Miller's bill?
Yes, absolutely. So 1237, as introduced, requires that a task force be established to study the Maryland Online Individualized Education Program to determine whether the program needs to be updated, evaluate the costs of maintaining it, and make recommendations about possibly replacing it or updating it. The amendments simply add to that original charter that they also look at the Maryland Online Individualized Family Service Plan, which is sometimes colloquially known in the state as the Infants and Toddlers Program. It's the other hand of the IDEA that relates to those under the age of 3. So that is the amendment.
Any questions about the amendments, colleagues, or the bill? Okay, we have a motion on the amendments, please.
Second.
Okay, the amendments have been moved and seconded. Any further discussion? Not, please raise your hand or say aye if you are in favor. Okay, and that's everybody's hand up. So the amendments are adopted unanimously. Is there a motion on the bill as amended?
Move favorable as amended.
Second.
Okay, the bill's been moved and seconded. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor, please say aye or raise your hand. And that is also unanimous. So that one comes out with a favorable report. Moving on to our second and last bill for the day, HB 1076. And Alistair, I will turn that one over to you as well.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So this bill has to do with the sharing of this particular type of instructional material with called NIMAS with to make sure that students who are blind or have visual impairments get those materials in time for the school year. So as the bill came in, it required that by January 15th of each year, that county boards come up with the total amount of instructional materials that will be provided in the following school year, and that they coordinate with the Instructional Resources Center to make sure that those materials were shared in a timely manner. MSDE is required to provide support and to cover the cost if there couldn't be a reasonable meeting of the minds about getting those instructional material to the kids who needed them. The bill is introduced also required that in a timely manner, the makers of textbooks provide the files to make those instructional materials to the National Instructional Materials Access Center within the state, and required some reporting on the number of files requested each year that could not be provided. So that's the bill as it came in. Would you like me to discuss the proposed amendments, Madam Chair?
Yes, please. Actually, I'll just pause. Delegate Grossman, are your questions on the amendments before us? I just want to make sure. Go ahead. Yep.
It's just a fast question. I just because I know that, or I feel like I remember that when we spoke about this bill the first time, that timing was important in terms of when those materials were requested to make sure the students had them for the next school year. So I just wanted to confirm that MSE felt that March 15th was a reasonable amount of time for them to turn around for the following school year, so the students would have the materials when they started.
So this is actually an obligation for the county boards under the bill, both as introduced and amended. Sorry.
Actually, I was going to say, maybe if we can just have Alistair walk through the rest of the amendments, and then we do have a number of stakeholders.
I jumped the gun.
Yes. No, you're totally fine, Delegate Grossman. And then we'll go back to your question after Alistair's walked us through the amendments, because I do think there's some folks on the call who could answer your question.
So, okay. Thank you, Madam Chair. In the amendments, rather than have rather than the January 15th deadline, there's a March 15th deadline, but it's only for instructional materials that are applied to students with IEPs or 504 plans. So it's not the entire student body population, but just those particular students that the counties have to make sure that they are aware of the upcoming materials. The amendments also require the county boards, if unable to meet the requirements of the bill, to make a plan and fulfill the plan with the family of the student who is missing the materials within 45 days before the first day of the next school year in which the student will need those materials. Additionally, the amendments slightly rewrite the process by which publishers are required to provide electronic files. Beginning on January 1st of next year, county boards are required in any contract they sign with publishers to require that the publishers provide an electronic file of the textbook to the National Instructional Materials Access Center. And to that end, MSDE, the county boards, and the NIMAC are all required to enter into a memorandum of understanding to accomplish that sharing of information. Additionally, and finally, the amendments add a few things to the list of reporting requirements. In addition to just the number of requests that were unable to be fulfilled, the amendments include the number of requests that were able to be fulfilled, the number of students requesting those materials, and the grade levels of the students who request the materials.
Thank you, Alistair. And let's see, I see Mary Pat Fannin from PZAM is on here. If maybe she would like to answer Delegate Grossman's question about the timing and the March 15th date.
I'd be happy to, but I'm going to admit that I missed the question. So could you
Delegate
repeat
Grossman,
it,
do you want to
Delegate?
repeat your
I'm
question?
sorry.
Sure. My question was just, is March 15th, I know it's, you know, a while ahead of the next school year. Is that ample time for the school to be able to get said materials for the following school year? Do you feel like that's enough of a runway for you to do that?
We do feel like that's enough of a runway and appropriate because the students wouldn't necessarily be making some of their course selections until about that time anyway. And the IEPs are very student specific as well. So we think that would be ample time.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you, Delegate Grossman, for the question. Delegate Ebersol.
Well, thank you very much, Madam Chair. So I heard two things. I heard that it will apply to materials that are IEP materials or ones that be used for 504. But then I heard you talk about a contract obligation for counties entering into contracts. Will that apply to all textbooks, or will that also apply to this limited area of books used in IEP situations or 504s?
As written, it applies to all textbooks. I think that under federal law, the textbook manufacturers are supposed to be required to provide that instructional material anyway as part of the 2004 reauthorization of the IDA. I think that's like my memory of things, but I think it would apply to all textbook
With
material.
permission, Madam Chair, can we check in with also check in with Mary Pat on how that sits?
Certainly, and I'll just add a little bit more context into that particular provision. We had received information that this was actually the major sticking point in terms of getting these materials ready in time for students, was that when the contracts were being signed to get the textbooks, it wasn't till sometime after that the digital files were being requested. So we're trying to keep that moving along kind of hand in hand with when the actual textbooks are being ordered. But yes, happy to defer to Mary Pat if she would like to answer Delegate Ebersol's question more directly.
Sure. The short answer is it is existing law. And in my conversations with the special education directors, they said that their existing contracts do have that language. I think that it's probably not uniform across all of the districts. And so my plan is to get the procurement directors and the special education directors together after session to make sure everyone is very clear that this is existing law. So I think between, bolstering that and then the publisher language, we should have a belt and suspenders situation, hopefully, where we can get these files.
if I could just, I'm not sure, I want to re-ask the question because I'm not sure I heard the answer, because your Ms. Fanning, your answer was in regards to talking to special education procurement. So again, I'm asking the question that if we're going to require this in contracts, are we requiring it across the board for general education textbooks?
Yes.
And
Sorry
that
about
works,
that.
and that works okay for you.
Oh, yeah, it's existing law and it should happen all the time.
Okay, great. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Delegate Ebersol. Delegate Gerstmann, do you have another question?
I do. I'm sorry. These are just little sticking points for me. I just wanted to clarify, would we find ourselves, or would there be a situation where a visually impaired student would not have an IEP or a 504 plan that would kind of carry them under this legislation and still need those materials?
I suppose it's possible. It really shouldn't happen. I think the child find portion of law should find all students with disabilities, and they immediately then should have an IEP formed.
Okay. All right. I just wanted to clarify. Thank you.
Nope, we definitely appreciate the discussion and the questions. Any other questions, colleagues, or discussion on the amendments?
Madam Chair, I'm happy to move the amendments if you're ready for that.
I think we are. I don't see any other hands up.
I'll second it.
Thank you. Okay, so the amendments have been moved and seconded. Just check again. Any further discussion? Not seeing any. Okay, all those in favor say aye or raise your hand. And okay, yep, that is unanimous on the amendments on the bill as amended.
Move favorable as amended.
Second.
Okay, thank you, because I think we had two people making the motion at the same time. Further discussion on the bill as amended. All right, all those in favor of HB 1076 as amended, please say aye or raise your hand. And that is also unanimous. All right, thank you, colleagues. That is it for the time being for early childhood. We'll see you later for full committee voting.
Madam Chair, just a question. What time do we meet again?